To get started, I want to give everybody a quick chance just to introduce themselves. As he's at the top of my screen, we'll start with John and go down. If you guys can just give a one-liner on what your company does and then also your role, and then we'll hop in some questions from there. John, do you want to kick us off?
Sounds good. Thanks, George. Yeah, John Verdelia. I lead AI and emerging tech at Fluent Commerce. Fluent's leading enterprise order management and inventory availability solution. So we work with brands and retailers to provide accurate inventory and promise information to customers across all channels and provide flexible order orchestration to source and route those products efficiently and profitably for those businesses.
Awesome. Yeah, you want to go next?
Perfect. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Sneha. I'm the founder and CEO at Spur. We automate software quality assurance, manual QA testing for brands. So we're working with brands like Alo Yoga, HelloFresh, really automating their release processes. And we're basically using AI browser agents under the hood. So excited to chat today.
Awesome. Luke, I'll hand it to you.
Thank you very much, George. So my name is Luke Hilton. I work with Marketplacer. We're a software platform that is used by companies, brands, retailers, telcos, whatever it might be that want to scale and become a marketplace and ultimately sell things they don't own and take a commission on the sale and make money while they sleep. But thank you. Lovely to be here.
Awesome. And then just to fill on the story side, so we are an AI native iPaaS or an AI native integration platform. We work with a number of the companies joining us today too, to help them build integrations in days rather than weeks. But we also spend a lot of our time in the retail and marketplace space, particularly using AI native integrations to support functions such as seller onboarding, catalog onboarding, all sorts of processes that go into enabling a marketplace. And we can get a little more into that later on. To start, so for everybody who's joining, the plan for today is I have a few questions that I'm going to tee up for the audience, generally around marketplaces and how marketplaces are looking at adopting AI. As we go through these, please feel free to put questions in the chat. But at the end, we'll have 10 to 15 minutes to make sure we get to those questions and open the floor for general questions overall. To start, Luke, I actually want to kick it back to you as the kind of resident marketplace platform. Marketplace overall is a extremely blanket term. And we actually released a piece of content recently around just the sheer number of marketplaces that have started and been restarted in the last 10 years as people have learned how to build them. It is a term that covers a number of different flavors of marketplace, whether you've got open marketplaces, curated marketplaces, and I know Marketplaces supports all of the above. I'm curious, when you have retailers approach you today, how do you help them frame up what kind of marketplace they should even be exploring? Forget how AI fits into that picture. How do you even set the right tone from the start around how they should approach marketplace?
Yeah, really interesting question. So look, again, Marketplace is an Australian company. I'm Australian, if you're not picking up the accent, and I'm now based in London, and I have been here for the last 3 years. And it was very interesting in the sense of going into British retailers with a name like Marketplacer, saying, we're going to turn you into a marketplace, because we ran out the door with pitchforks as well, because again, not everyone wants to be a marketplace. And that's the thing. And depending on where you are in the world, there's different vernacular terminology. When you say that to a British retailer, they think you're wanting to turn them into Amazon, which is far from the case. So I think for us, really, it's always just around starting with strategy, but not necessarily the label, and really understanding what your goal is, whether it's margin, assortment, being just smarter with your inventory that you have, that you're holding, or is it loyalty as well? But then I guess, so an open marketplace is really around scale. It's a broad seller base, fast SKU growth. But there's with that, obviously you're scaling, so there's a higher governance, there's a lot more complexity as well. And we see from our examples is that really works when there's the traffic to support those aspirations and brand risk is manageable, I guess. Whereas where you have a vertical marketplace really curated, and we have a lot of our customers that are doing this, and it's more of a brand play as well. So they might have fewer aligned sellers. They've they're looking for stronger control, way more curated as well. And again, it's really around how do we offer value to our existing customer base as well. Yeah. British Telecom's a great customer of ours. EE is their website. They sell mobile phones, they sell broadband, but when customers buy from them, they're coming back every 2 years when they have to renew their iPhone or the new iPhone comes out. So it's how do we add more value to our existing customers now? And again, what we see is the trend, at least for us these days, is sometimes it's a hybrid of the two. It might have a curated core, but a very controlled long tail as well. So I guess it's really, for me, when we're helping our customers make decisions around this, it's just what's the promise that you're trying to protect in the first place, and really around, do you have the operational maturity to support model A versus model B as well. But I think for me, the bottom line is always the best model is the one that really strengthens your brand more than anything and scales with you operationally as well, not the one that just basically says, give me thousands of sellers and millions of products. So yeah, that was a bit of a long-winded answer.
No, for sure. I think that's a really good place to start, because marketplaces introduce a lot of complexity operationally, and misselecting the model of marketplace you're going to go for from the start, just immediately every decision from that point onwards then is a step in the wrong direction, just because of how structurally different and operationally different these different marketplace forms end up becoming. Now, we work with teams across Walmart and Kingfisher and Target and spend a lot of time speaking to marketplace leaders at Vasori. The biggest immediate fear I feel like that comes into people's minds is the orders and the returns side of the house, because you go from someone coming to your store and selecting their items and leaving again to 5-10 different ways they can order or process orders and process returns, and the buying behavior just changes entirely when it comes to marketplaces. John, with Fluent, you guys talk a lot about how you are not just a rules-based OMS, but you're really exploring AI as a intelligent orchestration layer for orders. Can you paint some color as to what does intelligent orchestration for OMS actually mean, and where does AI fit into that picture for that product piece?
Yeah, I think being an order management capability that provides rule-based processing, there's still absolutely a need for that sort of deterministic piece of the flow. That doesn't go away, and we don't look at it as let's shove AI into this workflow to just make it do everything automatically without being pragmatic about, there's if this then that is still going to apply for a large majority of the flow. When we think about how to transition to intelligent orchestration, we think about this in multiple phases, right? Measure, learn, and act. And so being able to have the data and understand and measure how your order sourcing is working, how that is affecting margin, how that is affecting your ability to deliver on time in full to your customers, that having that visibility is the starting point, right? So you have to have the right data to be able to drive that. Now, once you have that in place, you can learn and act on that. And so what we typically see is being able to provide this type of insights to our customers. You may not jump right into a fully autonomous, hands off the wheel, like just at runtime, we're going to have intelligent order routing, but you might want to do some A/B testing and have the visibility of what's working, what's not working across different order sourcing profiles, things like that. And then work from there to use the intelligence can be in what is recommended based on your business needs. If your business needs are, I want fast delivery at the highest margin, most of our customers want that, right? But how do you balance that, and how do you just continue to improve on that is where the intelligence comes in. And then moving forward from that, being able to learn and adapt and keep optimizing and using the intelligence to drive that, we look at ways where it may be based on certain parameters, proactively understanding where orders might be at risk for that on time and fill number and reaching out to the customer and letting them know. So ways that the intelligence side of things can be proactive. It can operate at a scale that humans can't across your entire set of orders coming through the system. We see a lot of opportunity for businesses to utilize some of that intelligence for ongoing order monitoring and things like that. So I think it's a spectrum, and it starts with the data, ability to measure and learn on that, and then the act can both be human in the loop but also autonomous where appropriate.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. You mentioned a good framework there, like measure, act, learn. Like let's start with the data. What can we see? How do we act on that at the human level to start? And then how do we begin to turn that into automated and intelligent processes with AI, whether it's agents or whatever word they've decided to use to describe it today. Sneha, I want to go to you because I feel like Spur in this room of 4 providers is by far the most like pure play AI tool. We were all kind of non-AI tools before this motion, and now have moved to AI, whereas you guys were built very much in the kind of in this AI age of the last 24 months. I'm curious your thoughts on that framework of measure, act, and then begin to automate.
Yeah.
And how you, as you guys work with marketplaces and brands selling on marketplaces, how you execute that process of, particularly for some of these marketplace leaders who don't want to hand the reins to an AI agent like straight out of the gate.
For sure, yeah. And I think that framework, actually measure and act and execute, right? Spur, we basically use AI agents that are trying to simulate customers going through the product, right? Or the marketplace. And typically a big challenge in marketplaces is a lot of things are out of the control of a product manager. Unlike a typical, let's say we take a brand like Alo Yoga, they control the look and feel of every single PDP and image and product that's showing up. And in marketplace, you're actually just open. You have multiple providers, many more sources of failure. And that's where the measure really comes in, tracking how inconsistencies, broken images, incorrect PDP descriptions, how is that all impacting conversion? How many support tickets are we getting with order requests not being completed? Things like that. And typically that measurement is really what convinces marketplace leaders, because testing a marketplace is very hard. Yes, you can test checkout on a couple of SKU items, but it's impossible to cover every single item or product that's there on a marketplace. So that's really where automation comes into the picture. And that's a story that's been very successful, which is we can do what one person can do at scale, and you're deploying almost 100 humans on the site for the payment of one. So that's generally like how they can start thinking about the ROI. And the whole point of this webinar really is experimentation to infrastructure, right? Where when you're thinking about adopting AI, it's also about where that true ROI comes in. And that measurement is really crucial to that process. Yeah, that's pretty much how we do it. And one big convincing factor is when we start finding a ton of issues on the site. That's obviously one when you can trace it back to conversion and true metrics.
Yeah. For me, for the marketplace leaders who are watching this, how do you frame to a retailer even beginning the process with Spur? Are you starting with 10 items as a proof of concept and then moving to, okay, we're going to select these X% of sellers? Like, how are you stepping through the motions to tackle the risk aversion that in marketplaces people often have due to the kind of the critical nature of the business?
Totally. I would say where we've come is QA is like quality assurance. So in terms of an actual risk to the business, there isn't a risk. It's actually better that it's almost like insurance that you have these tests. So that's typically how we try to frame it. And from a rollout perspective, definitely we'll start with a couple of SKUs or a particular pain point that they're seeing. So a certain marketplace could have an issue around localization and text translations being off on all pages. And then we'll start with that use case. Or it could be PDPs on the site. Our videos are not loading. Can you flag these issues across our site? So we take one use case at a time and start mapping it back to true bugs, and then we can track it to conversion and kind of the impact of the quality of the overall marketplace itself.
Yeah. And John, curious how you guys are tackling the same issue. Like for Spur, it's, as Sneha said, it's almost like insurance. Like they could run across the entire marketplace, but it has no immediate impact to the actual operation of the marketplace, in the sense of there's no risk of bringing down an order or bringing down an issue, like creating an issue that propagates. Whereas, of course, implementing AI at the level of the OMS, if it goes wrong, that's actually like potentially has immediate operational impact. So I'm curious, as you educate marketplace leaders on how like Fluent's AI features and how they can adopt those, how is your team stepping through that process with marketplace leaders to help them improve the operations, but tackle the risk aversion that's often common in these organizations?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think just more broadly across AI and how we look at this for our clients and their end customers, looking at it through the persona of consumer, the operator, and the builder. So that's the things that we do is all about enabling outcomes across those three different personas and consumers and their interaction with a marketplace and understanding the product, what's available and when can they get it, down to if you're like what we focused on a lot here on the operations side, with whether it's management of the orders and where something's being sourced from and getting the right data. I think there's a note in the chat about carrier integration and making sure all these different components are tightly integrated. You have to be, in order to adopt AI to support some of those operational and get those operational gains, you have to have the right visibility across those other systems to support that. And obviously that's critical in a marketplace operator concept. So I think that's crucial to gain trust and confidence when you have the right data to drive that AI capability. And then on the builder side, more for extending, whether it's the platform or the different sort of channels or markets that you operate in. I think the big thing for kind of adopting features is being able to be able to understand that and measure it is super important. It's not just adopting features because it is AI. It has to be driven to outcomes, and everything that we focus on is really driven by how do we show that there's a tangible outcome here. The trust factor is in other customer stories that are doing something similar. It's in being able to showcase how it is working for you and that it is improving your key metrics. So like, as long as that is the anchor to how we look at things, we can then work with our customers on being able to drive those positive outcomes rather than incorporating a new AI feature that's critical.
Yeah. I think that the question in the chat raises a really good point. So just for people who maybe can't see the chat, there is a point about, regardless of how good your AI is, if that AI isn't able to operate across data silos, there's a risk that AI is not going to be functional anyway. And in this case, it's framed up in the sense of distribution centers and fulfillment across marketplaces operations. I think we find this a lot at Vasori. Like we get brought in a lot we are an AI native iPaaS. We help companies build integrations in days rather than weeks. But sure, there is material benefit there in terms of cost, in terms of speed. But at the end of the day, no one really cares about how we get the integration built. Is the fact that the integration is unlocking the data silos between A and B, and therefore allowing a product like Fluent Commerce to then access data across all those systems. And I think the trend we're really seeing with retailers is the engineering org and the cybersecurity org in these retailers or these marketplaces care about the AI from a security and runtime and engineering perspective, but the operational leaders implementing it are less bothered about the AI. They're more just bothered about the outcome that it drives. And I think you're seeing a number of solution providers lean into marketing that's very about the AI, and sometimes that plays off well, and sometimes that doesn't, because it's more about the outcome than the way it's done, and the AI has just become a path to get it done faster. Switching gears a little bit, Luke, I was chatting to a customer recently, a vice president of marketplace at one of the biggest marketplaces in the world, and his quote was that seller-side tooling is the single greatest lever they have to drive faster growth against competition. Taking that, how are you at Marketplacer thinking through the tooling you provide within your marketplace software to the seller side to expedite onboarding, to improve the quality of sellers? And importantly, how do you think about the balance between enabling a marketplace to bring more sellers in versus enabling a marketplace to bring on a higher quality seller and a high quality catalog?
Yeah, great question. And it's changed. I've been with Marketplace for 5 years now, and the conversations I was having at the start are way different to the conversations I have now as well. I guess growth previously has been all about seller volume. And for me, it's changed as well. Now it's really been more around the quality of those sellers as well. And again, there's a new kind of seller that you're dealing with these days as well. I speak with so many people, so many what I refer to as professional marketplace sellers. There's a furniture company I've had a fair bit of dealings with over here. They're a seller on multiple marketplaces, and they have their own direct-to-consumer channel. They sell direct to their own customers, but it's a smaller part of their business compared to the 15, I think, marketplaces that they sell on. And they're using a channel manager in order to manage that part of the business. So what that says to me is, if you as a marketplace operator are providing a substandard experience for your sellers, they go elsewhere. Simple as that. So that's one thing to take into consideration. And I go into a lot of retailers and brands that are very outwardly communicating, we're a customer first customer. When you start moving into this realm of marketplace, is you've got a whole nother part of your ecosystem as well. Sorry, I don't know. That was actually my mother that was calling me. So I'm just going to remove WhatsApp. So for example, you're a customer first, and that's a part of your Venn diagram. Now there's these sellers as well. So offering a great seller experience is great, but then it really comes down to, what's a good seller? What does that actually mean? And we help our marketplace operators understand what that means as well. And there's things that we call seller due diligence as well. Is, of course, there's what are the reasons why we're doing this in the first place. That's the strategy, assuming that has been set and properly communicated within buying teams and the organization. But then it's, okay, what's the categories we're going after, and how do you define what a good seller is? And again, for me, it's always quite simple. I don't know, there's a place called Amazon.com. They've been doing this thing for quite a while, and they have lots of sellers and lots of products, and they have publicly available information where you can find out who are the sellers, what is their star rating. And so rather than you going out there and trying to find someone that's not necessarily digital native, that doesn't necessarily have a great direct-to-consumer experience, go out there and sit there, and that's a part of your due diligence. Desktop research. Who are they? Are they already selling on other marketplaces? Are they getting good ratings and reviews? Of course. And then you start going into the next step, which is, do they have a direct-to-consumer channel? Yes. Great. Do they have great product information? Yes. Great. Do they have a communicable returns delivery proposition? Are they on a modern commerce platform? And all these different kinds of signals that you can see. And then you're going, okay, this is a very safe option as well. Once you've decided that you're going to pitch and sell the seller on the dream of joining your marketplace as well, it's just being about clearly defining the rules of engagement. What are the seller terms and agreements? What are your expectations around product enrichment, SLAs for dispatching, all those different kinds of things? Because again, you're setting the framework of what is a partnership as well. So I guess there's some of the things that we recommend definitely. It doesn't sound pretty boring, but at the same time, it's making sure that you're getting the right sellers on that are ultimately going to be providing a good experience for your customers as well. Super important.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think the setting a framework for what you define as a good seller is something that, if you look at that 2010 through 2016 marketplace surge, some marketplaces miscalculated and then came back to kind of reset 2020 through 2025 on what that actually looks like. I think having spoken to a number of marketplaces, the challenge that then creates for them is, great, do I now have to speak to every single seller and do like a vetting process? Am I about to spin up a support center? Like, how do you operationalize that?
Yeah.
I think the really exciting thing we're seeing, and we've been able to work with a number of marketplaces on, that data is now available, as you said, via APIs and via internet search. AI unlocks the ability to run that at scale in an automated way. And models are increasingly not just handling the structured, like this field should be in this field and not in this field for a catalog, but also the unstructured pieces. It can read through comments, it can read through all the unstructured data that comes with a lot of this seller data. And we're like now increasingly able to automate 95% plus of the seller evaluation stage, whether that's looking at their returns information, whether that's looking at their comments in their Amazon files. Like, we can automate a lot of that process to basically eliminate the need for manual seller assessment, even though we're massively increasing the amount of seller assessment we're running during that onboarding process. So I want to open the floor to questions from the audience. I think Prabhat raises a really good point that I'll spin into a question. We've actually already lightly touched on this, but I think it's really worth going through this in detail. None of this AI works if you don't have the foundation to make it work. If you don't have the data readiness, if you don't have the systems in place, if you don't have the ability to connect systems, your AI ends up operating on data silos, and that's just never an effective way to function. I'm curious currently how the three of you are finding the state of marketplaces when you go to speak to them. Like, overall, how do you see that the range of current readiness? Are we seeing a move towards a level of readiness that's much, much better than previous? Or are we still seeing a number of businesses that are a good few years away from being ready? And I'm also, to add to that, how are you thinking through encouraging or guiding a retailer to be ready for a more AI native solution like one of yours? I don't know, Sneha, if you want to take that and start.
Yeah, I would say, I think to like guide a retailer from an AI native perspective, it's just running a solid proof of concept, right? I think part of that is being able to show value pretty quickly. And from the ROI piece that Prabhat you mentioned, right? If ultimately from a retailer standpoint, the question to ask is, how are we measuring value? What is the ROI math? Is the AI initiative going to save us resources? Is it going to boost efficiency? For us, one of the how brands think of ROI with QA automation is in a couple of ways. One is just being able to do a lot more with less and being able to release faster, push out changes quicker. And now in the climate with software development and where teams are going, the ability to make changes is actually pretty simple. There's so many tools out there that allow you to run experimentations on your site on the fly. So testing typically becomes one of those bottlenecks. So releasing faster, then we ground that into ROI. Another way of thinking about ROI is just how many orders did you guys lose because of an error in checkout or an error in a payment method? And then I think really having a very clear way of mapping ROI is the best way to justify spend in terms of approaching an AI solution.
Yeah. John, I'll flick it to you. Any thoughts on that?
Just specifically on the foundational components and what Luke was talking about of the quality of seller, I think with where we fit in and being the inventory availability of record for the buying channels, if you think about multiple sellers and being able to position that on your on your commerce channel, you have to be able to have a quality seller on the fulfillment and in what you're showing from a promise standpoint. Luke mentioned Amazon.com. The reason everybody goes there is speed of delivery and accurate promise information. And brands and marketplace operators are continuing to need to be very accurate and informative in these promise dates that they provide to their customers. And so if you have just a high volume of sellers and a disparate set of systems that don't provide the right information to surface that to the buyer, there's brand erosion and everything like that. So I think that's pivotal to being able to support what you want to do as an operator here is for the seller quality. That's a key portion of this is being able to have that very visible and accurate. And that's the basics. As it pertains to AI on the tail end of that is you can then use that to drive, okay, based on this information and current weather patterns and carrier information, you're able to be more accurate with some of those things. But it's going to start with the seller and the ability to, like, are they going to get this out the door to ship? What is their SLA for that? And starting there. So I think there's a lot that we see there that we have there. There are customers and prospects that we work with where that isn't as well oiled, and there is maybe more of a black box on some of the fulfillment timeframes from a seller or a dropship vendor, et cetera. Focusing on that when it comes to how you protect your brand and are able to deliver on those promises for your customers is super important.
Yeah. I want to make sure we wrap with time. If anybody else has questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. Luke, I'm going to kick it. We started with you. I'm going to kick it to you to end. If you were to identify a trend that you're currently seeing at Marketplacer across your accounts that you think isn't yet appreciated and is going to continue to grow whether that trend is a particular point of AI adoption, whether that trend is a particular method of adoption. I'm curious if anything comes to mind of something that we are beginning to see the start of and we have not yet seen at scale that you think is going to become much more of a talking point through 2026 and 2027.
Yeah, look, Marketplacer uses AI extensively in our platform. And the way we're using that as the marketplace operator is to really help streamline operations, funnily enough. And again, how to better understand seller performance, how to better understand curation, what products are there to go. So for me, it's an interesting world when you've got businesses like Marketplacer that are now adopting and enhancing the platform with AI versus businesses that are digitally AI native and spinning these up from scratch as well. We're regularly a part of a composable architecture. And again, what I'm seeing more and more is people understanding that working with a marketplace platform that feasibly, or it's supposedly on the label says we do everything, is not necessarily something what people want as well. We go into retail environments or brands or people that are selling direct, and they already have an established commerce platform. They have an OMS, they have a PIM, they have a call center platform as well. So really, for me, it's around probably the trends I'm seeing more and more is, and probably being understood more is, you don't want a marketplace monolith. You're looking for a platform that can be slot into an existing ecosystem, be a part of an existing architecture, and then you can wheel in specialist solutions like our friends at Fluent, who we've had the pleasure of working with for many years, as well as other composable platforms as well to deliver on an outcome. So I think for me, that composability is probably a big thing I'm seeing more and more as well.
Awesome.